on either side. And here we go, we're getting into it. Give it up for both your junior finalists here. We're going to be seeing that Incineroar Fluttermane paired up against that Rillaboom and Ogerpon Halflane.
So 4 completely different Pokemon here as we look at the leads for both Hideo and Zachary in this Game 1 of the Junior Finals. The Intimidate drop from the Incineroar is going to be the perfect choice here for Zachary to drop the attack stat of both of these physical attackers. But we get our information. Zachary's Fluttermane with that booster energy is going to be getting a boost to its speed stat.
So it's definitely going to be outspeeding that Ogerpon Halflane, and it doesn't have access to any of those setup moves, so the Intimidate coming out from the Incineroar is going to be permanent. Yes, you can go for your Terrestrialization, get that Embody aspect, and get that +1 to bring yourself back to neutral, and that might be enough to be able to KO the Fluttermane on Zachary's side of the field. Because it's got that speed boost, it could be leaning more into its offenses because it doesn't really have any supporter moves. I wouldn't be surprised if that would be enough to be able to pick up the knockout on that Fluttermane.
And Fluttermane aren't known for their physical defense stat, so it's very important that the Incineroar is there to try to help mitigate some of that incoming damage. But as you said, maybe this Fluttermane wasn't going to be trained to actually get through any of those attacks anyway, even with those Intimidate drops in place. And that Intimidate drop is going to get neutralized by the fact that Hideo has used the Terrestrialization on this first turn to give an Embody aspect boost over to this Hearthling Ogerpon. Not only is it going to get a boost to its Fire-type Ivy Cudgels, but it also gets that +1 to its attack stat to neutralize the Intimidate.
Yeah, and the Ivy Cudgel went into a Protect on the Fluttermane, potentially scared of that knockout. And then what a fantastic first turn for Zachary here. That was a double up into the Fluttermane with the Wood Hammer.
Now the Incineroar gets to go on the offensive. A Flare Blitz into the Rillaboom is going to do quite a lot, but the Rillaboom is able to stick around for the next turn.
Yeah, that is momentum on Zachary's side immediately there, because that's put the Rillaboom in range of any attack the Fluttermane would want to go for. It could be Dazzling Gleam to get extra chip damage on the Ogerpon as well. The thing you have to contend with, though, is that there's double priority available in both Grassy Glides available on Ogerpon and on Rillaboom. And I think that maybe the Meadow Plate might push the KO of a double-up Grassy Glide into that Fluttermane.
Because not only are you getting priority from the grassy terrain getting set up, but you're also getting increased damage to your grass-type attacks alongside the Metal Plate that Rillaboom has for that same type attack bonus. But Rillaboom sees the threat in front of it. A KO from either the Fluttermane or the Incineroar would put Hideo down a Pokemon already in this game number 1. So instead, Hideo brings out his own Incineroar to get an Intimidate drop onto the Incineroar across the way, and maybe make Fake Out available for later. Zachary sees the appointment to be able to go for a Shadow Ball, but now it's going to be the Ivy Cudgel back in response at neutral with the increased damage there from the Hearthflame Mask. It is a one-hit knockout into the Fluttermane.
Yeah, no Grassy Glides needed there. And there's that parting shot from the Incineroar. It did just get intimidated by the Incineroar on Hideo's side of the field, but no, getting straight back out there. And that's going to be really, really nice for Zachary, because now you can put that Ogerpon down to -1 when you switch out. You're going to be bringing something in, and Incineroar could easily rejoin the fray here.
And this is where things get kind of interesting, because if Incineroar does come back out, not only do you get an Intimidate drop, as you said, to kind of bring that Heartflame down to -1, but you also actually threaten a Fake Out. Maybe you can keep your own Urshifu safe when that has been the Pokemon to join the fray.
Yeah, but it's not the Incineroar joining the field. We've got the reveal of all 4 of Zachary's Pokemon. Now, that was the Ogerpon Halflane that has joined the field for the Urshifu. If the Incineroar had joined the field, we haven't seen the speed orders between the 2 Incineroars, and then the Fake Out mind games becomes incredibly risky when you don't have access to that information. If you knew your Incineroar was faster on Zachary's side of the field, this would have been an easy Fake Out into the Incineroar and an Aqua Jet to KO the Ogerpon. But not knowing those speed orders is probably why Zachary's opted in for that Ogerpon Halflane instead. Now, you can just go for a safe double protect in the face of the Incineroar's Fake Out potential, and then maybe you can threaten with those Aqua Jets in the future. But keep in mind, we still got the grassy terrain on the field. A Grassy Glide would still prioritize, or out-prioritize, I should say, that's Aqua Jets.
Yeah, and I think that's where you've got to kind of start to look at the other differences between these 2 Ogerpon. As a reminder, Helios is running Stomping Tantrum, not actually any supportive option in the Follow Me, whereas we see the Ivy Cudgel and the Wood Hammer here for Zachary. It's going to be a complete disruption of the board state as we see Hideo remove the Ogerpon from his side of the field, bring out the Raging Bolt to reveal that final Pokemon in this game, and Zachary goes out on the offense.
Yeah, it's going to be a terrestrialization of the Ogerpon Half Flame apiece, and I think that Zachary might just be getting away with free damage here, given that there was that double swap out into the Rillaboom and the Raging Bolt.
The Rillaboom is really unhealthy as it makes a reappearance here, and if you lose the Rillaboom now, you will not have that Grassy Glide for the remainder of the game.
Oh!
Zachary is going to be able to get away with a KO here as the Rillaboom switches into the Ivy Cudgel, and now it is going to be a Pokemon down a piece here in our first game.
Yeah, and that's taken care of the Grassy Glide that could have gone into the Urshifu. Yes, there is still the Ogerpon Half Flame waiting in the back, but the grassy terrain is now limited because we've only got, I think it's one more turn of that grassy terrain, but you still do have access to Fake Out. The Rillaboom had got to get that Fake Out pressure and also get a crucial Intimidate onto that Ogerpon to cancel out the Embody aspect. Now, the Ogerpon on Zachary's side of the field does have access to Follow Me, so you cannot safely go for a Thunderclap into the Urshifu, but you do have access to other attacks here. You don't necessarily need to go for the Thunderclap. You can just go for the regular old Thunderbolt instead. Not Thunderbolt, the Electroweb would be able to bypass the Follow Me very, very nicely and get that extra speed control on the boards.
I think this is going to be a pivotal turn as we look at this Raging Bolt, hoping to get some damage down onto the board. As you called out, Thunderclap isn't necessarily safe, but it feels like a great option to be able to threaten this Urshifu, and Zachary doesn't want to leave this up to chance. Even with the Electroweb having a chance to miss, you can bring your Incineroar back out and have that Fake Out for the next turn. The other thing that this is going to help you out with is the physical output of this Incineroar, but it's going to be the Ogerpon to move first. It just goes for the Ivy Cudgel, something that the Raging Bolt is able to resist fairly comfortably. It's going to take 3 more to actually knock it out. And with the Dragon Pulse, I think that's another reason why you really like to be able to see that Incineroar switch in. This is not damage that the Urshifu had to take, and it gets to keep its Focus Sash intact.
It does, but you do get the pivot out of the Incineroar to be able to get some Intimidates going once again. Of course, we know what's going to be coming in here. The Rillaboom's already being KO'd. It has to be that Ogerpon Half Flame on Hideo's side of the field that now will be at +1 because you have already got the Incineroar on Zachary's side of the field already there. It can't switch in to get that Intimidate. So Hideo's is going to be at full power. And if Hideo wants, can switch out that Raging Bolt into the Incineroar once again and really neutralize the damage that could be coming out on Zachary's side of the field.
Next turn, you do have this Hearth Flame that can threaten a super effective Stomping Tantrum from Hideo. It will be super effective into either the Incineroar or this Hearth Flame Ogerpon that has gotten rid of its grass typing. You can also not have a safe switch here because that Urshifu doesn't want to take a neutral Earth Stomping Tantrum either.
Well, because it's got its Focus Sash, right? And any damage will be able to break that. And it will be strong enough that even Grassy Terrain Recovery wouldn't be able to bring it back up to that Focus Sash. And as we mentioned, Incineroar is always a fantastic switch in the face of opposing Incineroar and other Ogerpon Half Flame.
That's right, and so that's why we're going to see Hideo go for that expert move here, dropping the attack style of the Incineroar and Ogerpon and just continuing to keep the damage output in check. As the Incineroar on Zachary's side actually gets the Fake Out onto Hideo's Ogerpon, it's going to be Zachary's Ogerpon that gets the Wood Hammer down into the Incineroar that just freshly switched in. Something we will have to keep in mind is that we saw Hideo's Ogerpon flinch first, so maybe a bit of a reference in how it's trained, and can it be faster than Zachary's throughout the rest of this game and set?
Well, the most common trend on Ogerpon Half Flame is to run as fast as possible, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see if that is still going to be the case that Hideo's is going to be moving first, because already mentioned, we've got Stomping Tantrum as one of the tech moves that is not normally on Ogerpon Half Flames, and facing down 2 fire types, I don't see a reason not to just go for a Fake Out here and that super effective Stomping Tantrum, especially because you are not intimidated. You are at +1 stage of attack, so you're going to be able to do a huge amount of damage to the opposing Incineroar or be able to knock out the opposing Ogerpon Half Flame if it doesn't go for that spiky shield, which it probably does need to do in the face of the Incineroar. But again, because you surely have to protect in front of the Fake Out. Do you just Fake Out the Incineroar expecting that? Apparently not. It's going to be a Switch Out instead.
Just going to keep that Incineroar safe for later, and the Raging Bolt will reappear on the field. Knows that it's not under a huge amount of threat here in the face of these 2 Fire-type attackers, as well as that Wood Hammer.
Oh!
the Ogerpon, but Hideo calls the spiky shield. The stomping tantrum into the Incineroar is going to be enough for another knockout in this game 1. Incineroar does give a bit of a parting gift though with that Rocky Helmet recoil, but Zachary has been brought down to his final 2 Pokemon in the first game.
Yeah, Hideo calling that Spiky Shield. It wants to go for Spiky Shield in the face of Fake Out, but Fake Out is now waiting in the back once again. A fantastic switch in to this Raging Bolt, because the only real damage that Zachary has available now into it is close combat. That would start to reduce the defenses on the Urshifu and make it more vulnerable to the Ogerpon. Granted, you can't go for a priority Grassy Glide anymore because the grass terrain is gone. That means if you do go for an Aqua Jet into this Ogerpon, you can't really stop that. And you would also out-prioritize any Thundercats that can happen.
Another switch here for Hideo as this Ogerpon feels the threat of this Rapid Strike Urshifu. The Incineroar comes in to try to delay some of that incoming damage, but with this Intimidate drop, it is going to at least help out a little bit with the Aqua Jet, but it's not going to deal with this surging strikes that can be coming through with those critical hits. Incineroar gets his Citrus Berry to recover up some of that damage, but now the Ogerpon is ready to fight. The Ivy Cudgel again into the Raging Bolt. It's going to do less damage now as we see these Intimidate drops start to stack up, and Hideo is able to hit both Pokemon with this Electro Web. The speed drop's going to be really nice here to deal with this Urshifu and maybe force it into a position that it has to be stuck going for Aqua Jet because it is just nervous about the speed interaction.
Well, depending on how the Raging Bolt has been trained, if it is trained quite speedy, you can get away with that with Assault Vest. Thunderclap might be able to out-prioritize an Aqua Jet, but at the same time, you've still got Fake Out pressure available to you. You can easily go for the Fake Out into the Urshifu, stop those Aqua Jets coming out, or maybe even a Surging Strikes to be able to KO the Incineroar at this point, and that might be why we see a potential double protect here, because there's at least one of them, but it wasn't a protect, and that's a fantastic call.
Perfect there, because it is the Ogerpon on Zachary's side that was hoping to get some damage down, but Hideo does not get the Dragon Pulse into that Pokemon. It was going after that Urshifu. It is at such low HP that really should be a knockout coming through here closely at Zachary on the back foot.
Yeah, he is for sure. He's been intimidated on the Urshifu, and close combat is the most amount of damage that you can do into a Raging Bolt. I don't think it would go down to a -1 close combat here. Maybe with the help of the Ogerpon with an Ivy Cudgel, that could be very close if that Raging Bolt's able to survive that attack. If it is, and Electro Web gets fired off once again, that is absolutely game for Hideo. And even if the Raging Bolt goes down, that could be a potential parting shot coming out from the Incineroar to get that Fake Out pressure back once again, because your Ogerpon is definitely faster now.
Oh, well, Follow Me is one way that you can get around that speed control from the Electro Web a couple of turns ago. It's going to redirect away the attention from the Raging Bolt, so the Ogerpon takes that move instead. And here's the final moment. The close combat is not enough to get the knockout into the Raging Bolt, so it gets to stick around for the next turn. And Incineroar is going to finish off this Ogerpon with the knockoff. Final Pokemon here for Zachary, and very slow HP. Hideo is one Pokemon away from going up 1-0 in the series.
He just needs to attack with all of his Pokemon at this point. Urshifu's absolutely in range of Dragon Pulse. With the -1 from close combat, it's probably even in range of knockoff. And even if it wasn't, the Ogerpon would be waiting in the back to finish the job.
This Raging Bolt is going to take that Aqua Jet like a champ and deliver the final blow to the Urshifu, and Hideo Uezu wins game number 1.
Fantastically played there. It was a very repositional game for both of these trainers because they opted for very similar strategies. Ogerpon half lane was what they terrestrialized there, and that seemed to be the strategy that both of them went for, but Hideo was just able to outposition very, very nicely.
You see both of the dads in the crowd there cheering on their sons. Excited to see them get this opportunity to play on the big stage at the Europe International Championships. As we look back on what happened in that first game, you can see firsthand what you're talking about in terms of these two trainers, you know, prioritizing keeping their Pokemon healthy and then trying to go for the knockouts where they can. But Hideo was the player to get the first KO on the board, and removing that Flutter Mane meant that you were removing some really valuable damage into that Raging Bolt that ended up sweeping the rest of the game.
Yeah, with these kind of teams, positioning is the name of the game, and as soon as you lose one of those pieces to be able to pivot about, that puts you on the back foot, and Hideo was able to take that first KO and then ride that momentum into this first game win, because he still had 3 Pokemon available to take care of that lone Urshifu right at the end game.
Urshifu unfortunately can't win out that 1v3, but maybe now that you've seen the power of that Raging Bolt, Zachary might be thinking about ways that you can actually keep that Flutter Mane safe to deal with the Raging Bolt. Maybe it's even bringing your own Raging Bolt to the party. That is something that Zachary has available alongside a Fairy Terrestrialization. When this Raging Bolt for Hideo doesn't necessarily have access to those really big, powerful moves like the Thunderbolt as well as the Draco Meteor, this might be a nice Pokemon for Zachary to rely on.
Well, given that the Ogerpon was what was committed to in that first game, that might be a good switch-up. But speaking of switch-ups, we do have one. Even though Hideo was able to take that first game, here's the Flutter Mane.
The Flutter Mane, a nice adjustment as we start off this game number 2. The booster energies are going to get consumed on both sides. We've already seen Zachary's get a speed boost from his, but it's going to be another speed boost for Hideo's as well. But the fact that we saw the speed boost activate first for Zachary's Flutter Mane leads me to believe that it is going to be the faster one in this matchup, despite the supportive set we see for Hideo's.
It does make sense. The supportive set has access to 2 forms of speed control, so you can drop your speed just a little bit to get some extra bulk, whereas the Zachary's Flutter Mane, it's got all offensive attacks and wants to be outspeeding and picking up knockouts. So no surprise here to see that happen. And we'll have to wait and see if that Shadow Ball, because it's not a special attack boost, it's a speed boost, whether that will be able to pick up the knockout on the Flutter Mane. But given it's probably a bulkier one, it should be able to survive that attack. That will allow it to go for any speed control it wants, whether that's the Icy Wind or the Thunder Wave, or even just keep itself safe and switch out.
It is going to switch out. It does mean that Hideo is going to lose the booster energy for the remainder of the game since it got consumed and the Flutter Mane no longer has access to it. But it's the Incineroar that comes in to take its place, and Urshifu goes for a safe detect. Hideo does have access to Terra Steel on this Urshifu, which would make it nice and safe from these fairy type attacks from this Flutter Mane, but Incineroar, a great defensive switch here to deal with the Shadow Ball from Zachary's and to protect to deny the Wood Hammer.
Yeah, that was a really, really nice switch in there for Hideo, both getting fake out pressure on the board to be able to fake out that Ogerpon and keep the Urshifu safe from those grass type attacks, and that allows you to go for your Terrestrialization very, very comfortably. The Terra Steel on the Urshifu is going to allow it to survive anything the Flutter Mane would want to go for, and usually a Mystic Water Surging Strikes is enough to be able to pick up a knockout on the Flutter Mane. So maybe you take a Moonblast or even a Shadow Ball, but if you switch something in, which is what Zachary is going for, you're almost certainly taking a Surging Strikes, but Raging Bolt's a good switch in for that.
It's perfect. A nice adjustment here for Zachary, as this was the Pokemon that gave him a lot of trouble on Hideo's team. Both trainers have very similar Pokemon across their teams, and so the Raging Bolt may be perfect as the Urshifu is getting ready to strike. Terra Steel is a nice defensive Terra versus the Flutter Mane, and with this fake out, you're going to deny a super effective Ivy Cudgel from the Hearth Flame. As Surging Strikes are just going to tickle this Raging Bolt and start to chip it away.
Yeah, that's a really, really nice switch in with that Raging Bolt. If that had been a Surging Strikes into the Ogerpon Hearth Flame instead, that should have been enough to pick up the knockout, because Ogerpon Hearth Flame can survive a Surging Strikes, but probably not with the fake out chip that happened on that previous turn. And now the Terra Steel is potentially going to come back to bite this Urshifu, because now you've opened yourself up to be Ivy Cudgel. Granted, you've intimidated the Ogerpon, but we saw that Zachary was perfectly happy to use that Terrestrialization in that first game. He might need to Terrestrialize again to be able to pick up that knockout on the now Terra Steel Urshifu, but that would be able to really, really put on the offense for him.
Oh, absolutely would. Knowing that you're also going to be using that Ogerpon to try to deal with the Flutter Mane that Hideo had already revealed at the very beginning of this game too. But one thing's for sure, Zachary does need a knockout. It's going to barely miss out on the KO onto the Urshifu, which leaves his Ogerpon vulnerable to the Surging Strikes. It's going to be quite close though, as it takes the first one. The second one is going to bring this third one down to a roll, and this Ogerpon hangs on. It loves Zachary so much to be able to give this Ogerpon another chance, as Raging Bolt for Zachary goes on the offense to try to get some damage down into this Incineroar.
Yeah, and it's going to be able to activate its Citrus Berry. Get Back Very Healthy is yet to move, and it's going for the knockoff. So that's going to remove the Citrus Berry from the Raging Bolt instead, and that will not be able to consume that and will be stuck at half HP now. So yeah, that Ogerpon survival, really, really clutch there, because a Mystic Water Urshifu has the potential to be able to knock out that Ogerpon, so maybe some extra training into that Ogerpon has paid off for Zachary here. And now you can knock it out potentially just with an Aqua Jet, and there's no grassy terrain on the field, so you can't out-prioritize anything. You can just go for the Follow Me to keep the Raging Bolt safe, but I don't think you particularly need the Raging Bolt to be safe from the close combat, because you'll be able to respond with maybe a Thunderclap into the Urshifu as well. The Incineroar is incredibly healthy. It can go for a parting shot now and reposition once again.
Well, you can't go for the Thunderclap if you expect this Urshifu to go for the priority Aqua Jet, right? Because this Urshifu is likely going to be faster. But this Ogerpon is still going to try to help this Raging Bolt out as much as possible. We saw the Thunderbolt start just tip away at this Incineroar, but maybe something else you can fish for is going to be that paralysis. If this Incineroar can't break through, then it would be stuck on the field, but it does. It gives Hideo the chance to get the parting shot attack drop onto this Hearth Flame Ogerpon through Zachary, and also give Hideo a switch.
Yeah, and that switch could very easily be that Flutter Mane to threaten the Moonblast KO into the Raging Bolt. Granted, its booster energy has already been activated here, but that doesn't matter. It's absolutely going to outspeed an opposing Raging Bolt. And now we're in a position where what is going to stop an Aqua Jet into the Ogerpon, get past any Follow Me's that could have kept the Raging Bolt safe, and then a Moonblast into that Raging Bolt. Maybe you need to consider your Terra Fairy, even at this low HP, so you'd be able to survive that attack? Or do you just let both of these Pokemon go down here? Or maybe you can even protect the Raging Bolt, because it is that Citrus Berry set. It does have access to protect. Just sacrifice the Ogerpon to potentially to the Aqua Jet. Although that could potentially be risky if Hideo was able to call that and just go on the offensive with Surging Strikes instead.
Zachary's going to repeat Follow Me on the Ogerpon because this Raging Bolt is so important. It's going to get knocked out to the Aqua Jet from the Urshifu, so it's this Raging Bolt staring down the Urshifu and the Flutter Mane on the other side. The Thunderclap is good, though, for the extra priority damage into the Flutter Mane before it has to take this Moonblast in return, and that is a knockout to a Pokemon down here. Hideo still has 4 in this game, and he's getting so close to be able to take this.
Yeah, that Thunderclap might be very crucial here to definitely put that Flutter Mane into Shadow Ball range. Usually, a speed-boosting Flutter Mane is not strong enough to be able to knock out from full HP, but the Flutter Mane, of course, is no longer at full HP and should absolutely be in range of that attack. And we saw on that first turn of Game 1 that the Flutter Mane activated its booster speed first on Zachary's side of the field. So regardless of the fact there's no booster energies available anymore, those speed orders should be pretty similar, and the Flutter Mane on Zachary's side of the field can potentially get away with that Shadow Ball into that Flutter Mane, and then the Urshifu on Zachary's side of the field can maybe potentially pick up the knockout there with an Aqua Jet. It probably should be able to, given it's now a Steel type.
I think that Zachary just sees the Terra Fairy button as a perfect time to let loose and let this Flutter Mane show off its special attack training. Hideo is going to bring back in this Incineroar. Going to stop anything like a close combat, but you would still not be able to help out there with those Surging Strikes with that Intimidate. Hideo's going to make a full switch. It's going to be both Pokemon at his side of the field, making a return to their Pokeballs and sending back out the Raging Bolt and the Incineroar in its place. This Raging Bolt does have an Assault Vest, so that's going to help out against the special attacks of this Flutter Mane, but look at how beautiful this Pokemon looks with its Terra Fairy Jewel. It is going to be so excited to go for these Fairy-type attacks. The Aqua Jet into the Incineroar brings it down so low. A Pokemon that otherwise might be able to take these Dazzling Gleams pretty well is now on a sliver of HP. The Dazzling Gleam fires off, deals the finishing blow to this Incineroar, and chunks this Raging Bolt.
Yeah, that covered a lot from Zachary there. Fantastic play, getting a lot of damage into that opposing Raging Bolt. That should put it in range of the Terra Fairy Moonblast now. So that was a big trade of damage, double switching there, probably necessary to avoid any of the KOs. The Dazzling Gleam should have been able to KO that Urshifu that's in the red, regardless of the fact that it's a Steel type, and the Terra Fairy would have pushed the Dazzling Gleam and Aqua Jet to be a KO on that Flutter Mane. So not opting for the, well, I can see the Shadow Ball would be able to KO this, let me cover my bases, because now you can go for exactly the same thing now that the Flutter Mane's back on the field.
Pokemon deficit for Zachary, as the Urshifu and the Flutter Mane are going to be the final Pokemon in this game to keep Zachary in this set. But Hideo still has some very healthy Pokemon left, as this Flutter Mane is going to be switching back in since that Incineroar got knocked out. With those speed interactions, Zachary still might be the first to strike with his own Flutter Mane, but now that you know the Terrestrialization has been spent on both sides, you don't have to worry about that mechanic getting in the way.
No, I think I would probably still give the momentum here to Zachary, even though he went down to the last 2 Pokemon at the beginning, mainly because of the fact his Flutter Mane is still surely the faster of the 2.
And it is going to be the case as we see it move again in the face of Hideo's Terra Fairy Moonblast is going to secure the knockout into the Raging Bolt, and that's going to tie up our second game. 2 Pokemon left here for Hideo. Icy Wind comes out from the Flutter Mane, try to get the speed drop onto the Flutter Mane across the way. Zachary has been faster, and so this Icy Wind, critical to get Hideo's Flutter Mane to be one of the fastest Pokemon.
Yeah, that might give a window of opportunity here for Hideo. Now that you know your Flutter Mane is going to be outspeeding the opposing Flutter Mane on Zachary's side of the field, and potentially the Urshifu. Given that it's a Mystic Water set, we don't know its training and whether it will be able to outspeed an opposing Flutter Mane that is at -1, but they usually are. So we'll have to see. Is the Urshifu on Zachary's side of the field going to be faster as well? Because we know how low that Urshifu is. It's a Steel type now as well. It will take a neutral hit from an Aqua Jet, and of course you can't protect from that because of Urshifu's ability. So yeah, you could very easily here just go for the Aqua Jet into the Urshifu on Hideo's side of the field, pick up the knockout there, and because this Flutter Mane on Hideo's side of the field is much more supportive, you won't be able to do the damage you need. And even if you could, there's still the Focus Sash available on Zachary's side of the field.
Hideo's options here, get rid of the Flutter Mane. It is going to be a huge damage threat to the Pokemon that Hideo has left, especially in terms of that speed. But you're right that the Focus Sash from the Urshifu can get in the way. So Hideo has got to make the call here of what is going to be the most important, the damage threat of the Flutter Mane, or the fact that this Urshifu gets a chance to stick around for the next turn if it hangs on with that Focus Sash.
Yeah, we'll have to see the damage that can be coming out here from either of these Flutter Manes. But we did see that Dazzling Gleam was the move of choice coming out for Hideo, and it is Aqua Jet into the Flutter Mane.
Okay, so that is going to allow this Urshifu to move first, but the Flutter Mane on Hideo's side is faster. It's going to get another speed drop onto this Flutter Mane, which should almost surely guarantee the outspeed of this Urshifu. It's a Surging Strike into the Flutter Mane. That's going to be a knockout, and that's going to bring Zachary down to just the Urshifu remaining. Icy Wind serving 2 big pieces here. One, to get the Flutter Mane to be slower than Hideo's Urshifu and also break that Focus Sash. I think this is going to be it, boy. Hideo looks to be in a very good position here if he can land these 2 final attacks.
Yeah, went for Aqua Jet on the previous turn instead of Surging Strikes. If that would have been Surging Strikes, the Flutter Mane would have dropped, and then you can definitely beat the Urshifu that's now so low and a Steel type. But yeah, with the Focus Sash broken, Moonblast is going to be able to pick up the knockout on this Urshifu, and Hideo Uezu is going to be your Junior 2026 European International Champion.
What an incredible performance by this little junior that came over all the way from Japan. The reigning Japan Nationals champion turned into a top 4 at the World Championships, and now you get to call yourself an international champion. What a great match between both Hideo and Zachary. They played their absolute hearts out, but it is going to be Hideo Uezu that wins the Europe International Championships at the end of the day.
Yeah, fantastically played from both of these trainers here. Just sneaking in that first Icy Wind there allowed the Flutter Mane to get that second.